Hey, this is Mark Brody with Brohawk Solutions, and I'm here on my next episode of Coffee Talk with Brohawk. And I am very humbled and honored to be here with Fred Stacey. And those of you who have been in the industry for a while may know Fred from some of his more recent activity in the industry. And Fred, let's tell everybody a little bit about yourself and what are you up to these days?
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate you having me on. Right now I'm consulting for SaaS companies in the marketplace, CCaaS and AI companies, and really working with their go-to-market strategy, product roadmap, market insights, things like that. So
Excellent. Sounds like no 2 days are going to be ever the same for you,
they never are, no, and that's a good thing.
and not
Um,
especially in this industry.
yeah.
Yeah, excellent. Well, you and I spoke recently, about journeys and our journeys and how we even got to this to where we are today. And you know, one of the things that you and I both brought up is neither of us, and really no one in this industry went to school thinking, "Hey, I'm going to have a long career in contact centers." I just passed 32 years in the industry myself. Tell us a little bit about your journey and how you arrived to where you're at today.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, absolutely. Nobody says coming out of school, hey, I want to be in call centers. Well, back when we came in, they were call centers. Now it's contact centers, right? But I started out as an agent on the phones. I needed a job. I had just, I was working in a plant that manufactures doors, and I was stacking doors, physical doors. I got my hand caught in a roller. Didn't do severe damage, right? But enough I couldn't grip a door and stack it. And I ended up going into, getting into as an agent, a call center, and did well. Wasn't the best, but I did really well at certain segments, and I got a chance to teach a pod of people about what I was using, the questioning, how I was being successful at that, and I realized I really loved that. So, from an agent, it took me into training. Training took me into leadership. Leadership took me into helping companies start new call centers or recover failing ones. And then about it's probably been 20 years ago, my mentor, I met him and he pulled me into the technology side of the business, and I've been in contact center tech ever since. I've done everything in a software company in our industry, minus running development. I'm not a coder. I for some reason, anything past a complex SQL join, it just goes right over my head. I've even tried some low code, type of products, just to try to learn, that piece of it. And I've accepted that I'm not a developer, and that's okay. There's a lot of
Yeah,
great minds out there developing great products. But I at one point ran Europe, Middle East, Asia Pacific. So I've had exposure globally to thousands of call centers or contact centers. So, done a few startups, ran sales and marketing, engineering, training, stuff like that. So, yeah,
yeah,
definitely not your traditional path of going into a career. Yeah, I've been blessed though. This industry has given me so much.
yeah. This is one of those industries that it gives you back everything that you put into it and
Yeah.
then some, if you allow it to. Um, and you were talking 20 years ago, just in the technology space, um, and how much technology has evolved over the
Yeah.
last 20 years is just absolutely amazing, especially in the contact center world.
Mm.
It's what we're able to do in contact centers and in supporting our agents, in supporting our customers, is just mind blowing.
Yeah.
These, um, with that, CX is one of those terms that's top of mind in contact centers. I think I view it as almost like the flavor of the decade,
Yeah.
so to speak. And companies will oftentimes, lean into the technology aspect of it,
Right.
and thinking that's going to be the silver bullet. But what does having a good CX program mean to you?
Having a good CX program. So, as you know, I mean, obviously, I'm a technologist, and technology is a piece of it, right? But I truly believe that everything starts with the agents, the individual contributors, and I'm also a big believer in the employee experience above customer experience. Not much, right? I mean, when I stack rank the stakeholders in any organization, employees are always first, but like 1.1 is customer. But starting out with the customer experience focus as an organization, truly building it into your core values, and then driving it from the top down. I think there's a lot of companies out in the market that claim that they're focused on the experience of the customer, but it doesn't drive down right into the contact center. So people will take guidance, whatever you give them, and they will follow through for the most part, if you put a good effort into training and and providing the tools and all the things to the agents. But I think what happens a lot in organizations is, the top says it, somewhere in the middle it gets lost, and then the contact center is still looked upon as a cost center, and they're treated as such. So, I mean, an overall great focus on a CX strategy. You can look at companies like Amazon and Chewy, organizations that do it differently, right? And really do drive it all the way down to the people who are interacting with the customers. So, I mean, start with your people, your processes, but everything should be guided from the top down, with a vision towards providing the best experience for the employees and the customer. And then technology is a piece, it's a tool, right? You have to have it though. I don't know if you're familiar with Matt Dixon and the group, the effortless experience, right? I always use that as the kind of point to prove why you need technology, is because if you're going to remove effort and friction points in customer communications, you have to use technology. There's no other way. You can't remove friction points with humans. It just that doesn't work, right? I mean, and that's why over the last 5 years, the proliferation in our industry for artificial intelligence has been so big. So, does that answer your question?
It does, and I mean it kind of brings to mind, when like quality assurance as an example,
Yeah.
as a discipline within the industry.
Right.
It used to be, you'd have to have, um, a monstrosity organization of QA folks to be able to listen to, even, one or two calls per agent, per week, or in some cases
Yeah.
per month. And now, you can leverage the benefits of AI technology,
Mhm.
to go ahead and listen to 100% of the calls, pull out what customers are saying on every single call,
Yeah.
and help an organization really identify where the gaps are
Right.
in their processes, where their people are struggling, all these different places. So it's a great point you pull out, about AI, and that being a central part of it as well.
Right. Yeah, we used to barely be able to get to 1% of the calls, if you were lucky, right? And then you had to get lucky to find the right calls, to find the teaching moments. And then you had to take those teaching moments and actually teach, which is a big gap in most contact centers. I think, yeah, I mean, it's a perfect example. The technology allows us to scale efforts, and really improve and focus where we need to, to drive better results. So without a doubt.
And your other point about, employee being one, but technology being one. I you know I know you've probably flown quite a bit over your career. And what's
Yeah.
the first thing that we hear, in the announcements? Remember to buckle yourself up before helping others. If their oxygen mask fall, put yours on first, et cetera, et cetera. If we're not helping our agents first, you know, we can bring in great technology, but it's not going to be used the way that it's intended to be.
Yeah.
Um,
The greatest technology in the world, it will never fix process or people problems. It's just, again, it's a tool. Now it happens to be a tool that I love and I get excited about technology. I'm kind of a geek when it comes down to that. But in the end, the people and processes are still absolutely critical. And without them, no technology is going to fix everything. There's no silver bullet out there.
I 100% agree with you. So, when partnering with a supplier that does CX, I mean, we're looking at like dozens upon dozens of technology suppliers out there in the industry. Um, all of them claim to do CX, and I'll put air quotes here.
Yeah.
We're CX focused. But what advice would you give someone looking into, some sort of like SaaS platform to really help them help their organization out, become um, better at CX?
Well, I mean, that's a challenge, right? Every organization is a little bit different, with how they purchase technology and who are all the stakeholders. But I think the number one thing you have to figure out is, especially if you're talking like CCaaS, things that impact the agent, is understand the user side first. I can't tell you how many companies I bumped into that want to make a decision about buying a piece of software without actually understanding what works well in the agent's world, what needs to be improved, where are the efficiencies to gain, and then get those agents involved in the actual buying process. I mean, all stakeholders need to have a say. But if you're not looking at the end user and trying to improve their ability to serve the customers and find those efficiencies and not remove the ones that really work, right? Just involve the stakeholders that actually are using the technology. So, I mean, in the example of QA, obviously, if you're looking at a voice analytics platform and you're not involving QA, that's a serious problem. And a lot of companies make that mistake. They put their buying team as the director of IT and the VP of CX or customer service or whatever, but they don't engage the actual users. Yeah, I mean, it's get your house, focus inward first,
Yep.
and then go external. Now, as far as looking at technology, like you were saying, I mean, there's 120 plus CCaaS vendors in North America. There's over 600 conversational AI products. It's so hard to know who to use and who not to use, and you have to right size. But there's a lot of great organizations out there, a lot of great people that help guide companies through that process. I didn't always believe in it when there was, a couple of handfuls of vendors in the market, but now if you don't have experts helping you, you're probably asking for a challenge, because by the time you buy, implement, you find out then that it's not the right product. That's not worth the risk.
You
So
know, you bring up a great point there, about looking internally. I think that really starts at understanding what your requirements are going to be and what you see, what an organization sees the way forward looking like.
yeah,
Uh, and we're working with a partner, um, like yourself or any of the other vendors out there that will really come in and curate, um, what the best vendors that you want to be looking at, actually, what those companies are that you want to bring in and actually have those conversations with, because they meet all of your requirements,
yeah,
that you're trying to get to. So I think it's a great point of really talking to the experts is going to be mission critical. None of us, could learn all the things that are out here in this industry by ourselves, for sure.
No, I learn of a new technology company that I've never heard of, I swear, every week.
Mm.
And I mean, in the end, requirements, um, they get kind of defined loosely. And I think I can't tell you how many RFPs, RFIs I've seen that you could tell they took 10-year old technology RFIs, RFPs and converted it into modern. It's don't just stop at having some requirements. I mean, again, go back to your stakeholders, understand what are the actual needs, what are your wants, what are your integration points, accept that. And another big gap is accept that there's going to be change. You cannot migrate from a premise-based 20-year-old technology to a modern cloud-based technology without changing some approaches. Understanding those. And then, like you said, I mean, talk to experts, right size with the right vendors. Size does matter. And yeah, understand your risk tolerance and budgets and all the right things when you're making a major buying decision. Because the last thing you want to do, yeah, it's easier to change cloud vendors, but the last thing you want to do is change every year. Because the integration work and the learning curves, and make a good decision that'll last you for a while. So bring in experts.
I was talking to somebody, a partner of mine, and we're talking that, um, the average lifespan of a cloud implementation product is about 7 years. And so, look internally and think about your technology. Are you flipping vendors, every year or 2 years? You're probably looking at the wrong things, you
Yeah.
know, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah,
Um,
well, and that brings up a good point, right? More right now, especially, we're going to be going through a consolidation phase in this industry. There's also, it's very challenging markets. You'd have to live under a rock to not know that we're going through something, and this is a global issue. It's not just the US. So picking vendors that you're confident in their future vision,
mhm.
and their ability to be around for that 5 to 7 years, right? It's going to be challenging, and there's some great companies that I think are going to get gobbled up over the next few years. And again, I mean, that's what happens in a downturn, right? The people that run profitable businesses will continue to grow, or at least maintain, right? And the companies that were early stage over the last few years that have just been thrown VC money that never turned profitable, they're not going to be able to go out and capture any more money unless it's on like a down round or something like that. And then that becomes a whole set of complexities that just buyers need to be aware of. It's not it's not business as usual like it was over the last few years. Money is not free flowing anymore. So really take your time and do your due diligence on the companies that you select.
And with that sentiment as well, um, you know, just because just because somebody, may be like big and huge, if I'm a small contact center, that
Mhm.
may not necessarily be the right solution for me.
Right.
So, really do that due diligence and understand, um, the players out there. And it's not just about, the technology once implemented, but what kind of support are you getting, throughout the onboarding, throughout the, when there is a problem, what kind of support is out there, and be talking to folks,
Yeah.
um, in your industry, in your sector. you know
Yeah.
that's Yeah, no, and so, like, AI, like you said, I mean, when you and I started in the industry, IVRs came out, and those are supposed to replace every agent, and now we have more agents, working in this industry than ever before. I mean, I was seeing some figure of like over 3 million contact center agents are just in the United States. Let's not even talk about offshore, nearshore, and any shore. Um,
Right.
but with AI specifically, what are some features that every contact center, at a bare minimum, should be looking at implementing, as part of their technology strategy?
Yeah, well, I mean, artificial intelligence has come a long way, right? I mean, and AI is thrown around a lot. It's um, so, but it also hasn't come so far that you can replace agent activity, right? I tend to right now lean on stuff that really more impacts the ability for agents to perform their job, the teams to be able to run more efficiently. I'd start out, probably the no-brainer we already talked about is voice analytics. Front end bot technology, is definitely something you have to be looking at, depending on what the contact center does, right? Voice bots are interesting. There's some great companies out there, but there's also a lot of nuances to buying that technology, understanding your current stack. So I mean, what are some of the other ones? RPA is one we don't use a lot here in this industry, but we should. And that's not necessarily AI. Robotic process automation can be as simple as logic-based triggers that do activities in the back end to create efficiencies. Where the agents used to have to do multiple steps, you can have them only do one step, right? And I guess it all depends on really a contact center and their current stack. And like we said earlier, what's their vision? Where are they going? How active is their customer base? You want to be on the channels where your customers are at. If you cater to a younger generation, the mobile app and the digital channels are going to be extra critical. And then your analytics and your bot technology needs to lean towards those. So yeah, I mean, those are the baseline things that we all should be looking at, considering. And then the agent assist technology has also come a long way. But again, if you don't know your core stack at the voice side, then you got to make sure and ask the right questions, right? Because there's a variation between when you're doing live analytics on voice. If you don't have a stereo, meaning both directions are separated, both the agent channel and the customer channel are separated, and in stereo and in good quality, the analytics is a lot less accurate. So just be aware. And again, and this feeds back to our earlier point, is that get somebody that knows, and bring them in and have them help you and guide you along the process. So, I mean, those are the places I would start. I think there's some super fascinating technology coming down the road, but some of it might be a little early. So, yeah.
And at the end of the day, none of it's going to replace, an agent to be able to help solve those complex problems. And some of it goes back to also the leadership and what their comfort level is or risk tolerance is for agent empowerment. At the end of the day too. So Fred, I have a feeling you and I could geek out on technology and all the different use cases for like hours and days. This has been a great conversation.
Yeah.
Let's get to some questions that have nothing to do with the contact center world. So
All
let's
right.
talk about Fred. So Fred, what would people be surprised to learn about you?
What would people be surprised to learn about me? Well, I think that the one thing that probably surprises most people is they find out that I am a grandpa. And actually just last week, my third grandson was born.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Oh man. Third. That's
Third.
that's amazing. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
All three boys. My daughter apparently can only make boys. I don't know.
Your family's going to be in for it for many, many years.
Hey, I give me 3 boys over 1 girl.
I totally
I
understand
kid,
that.
but raising girls is a challenge.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah,
Oh my gosh. Well, congratulations.
thank
So
you.
because now you're a grandpa,
Mhm.
3 times over, what is your ideal off the grid location that, you just want to go and decompress and deconnect to reconnect, so to speak?
It's an interesting question. I don't get off the grid much,
Uh,
but I do on a regular basis. I have my preset gym time, right? And the reason I go to the gym, obviously physical fitness, but it's the mental aspect of it. And that is my point where I turn on the music, I lift, and it's the one moment in my day where I'm not thinking about 20 million different work things, right? For some reason, it's my moment in time where I actually can decompress on a daily basis. And it's a healthy way to go. But if I'm actually really going off grid, I mean, send me to a beach somewhere, where my cell phone doesn't work. And, I mean, that's always preferred, but I don't mind a good mountain hike either.
Excellent, excellent. And that's really in your backyard,
Oh yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So if someone wants to learn more about the work that you're currently doing or maybe doing in the future, what's the best way for them to get in contact with you?
Yeah, I'm always on LinkedIn. Super active on there. That's the easiest way. And I'm always responsive, unless somebody's spamming me, trying to sell me like we all get. But I usually try to respond, even if I don't know the person. I generally accept requests, especially if they're from within the industry. I also have a website, aincx.com, which is it's a funny name that I came up with years ago when I put the website together. It's artificial intelligence and CX, but I spelled it out in AINCX because it kind of sounds like Anks. And I've always kind of been one of those people. It's a little bit of a rebel, like the childhood angst that we all get,
Yeah.
um, and so, anyways, you can find me there. But probably best bet is just hit me up through LinkedIn.
Excellent, excellent. Well, Fred, this has been a great conversation. I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to
Yeah.
sit and have some coffee talk with you.
Yeah.
And I will definitely make sure you get one of these coffee talk with Brohawk mugs. So
Cool. I appreciate
excellent.
it.
My pleasure. Hey, thank you very much again. If you want to go ahead and get in contact with Fred, feel free to reach out to him directly on LinkedIn. I think that's how you and I first became connected years ago.
Yeah.
Or reach out to me directly, and I'd be more than happy to do a virtual intro with y'all. So have a great day, Fred. Thank you once again. Stay safe,
Yeah.
stay healthy, and we'll be talking again soon.
Thanks, Mark. Take care.
Thank you.